The morning sun blazed over the rugged mountains of eastern Afghanistan as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her rifle scope one final time. The 28-year-old sniper had been stationed at Forward Operating Base Chapman for 6 months, but today felt different. Intelligence reports indicated a high-value target meeting in the village below, and her SEAL team was preparing for what could be the most dangerous mission of their deployment. Maria had earned her place among the elite through years of relentless training and unwavering dedication. Growing up in a small Texas town, she learned to shoot from her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who taught her that precision and patience were more valuable than speed. After joining the Army at 18, she quickly distinguished herself at sniper school, graduating at the top of her class with unprecedented accuracy scores that caught the attention of special operations recruiters. The SEAL team she now supported consisted of 8 highly trained warriors, each with their own specialty. Team leader Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison was a 15-year veteran who had survived countless missions across multiple theaters of war. His second-in-command, Chief Petty Officer Ryan Torres, was known for his tactical expertise and ability to read dangerous situations before they escalated. The team also included explosives expert Petty Officer First Class Marcus Williams, Communications Specialist Petty Officer Second Class David Chun, Medic Hospital Corpsman First Class Alex Rodriguez, and 3 other seasoned operators who had become like family to Maria over the months. What made Maria unique was not just her exceptional marksmanship, but her ability to integrate seamlessly with the SEAL team despite being from a different branch of the military. The Navy had specifically requested her assignment after reviewing her combat record from previous deployments in Iraq. Her reputation for making impossible shots under extreme pressure had earned her the nickname Angel among the special operations community, though she preferred her teammates simply call her Santos. The mission briefing revealed that intelligence sources had identified a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. This commander, known by the codename Red Falcon, had been evading capture for over 2 years and was believed to be planning a major offensive against coalition bases. The meeting location was a compound nestled in a valley surrounded by steep cliffs and rocky terrain that provided natural defensive positions for anyone wanting to escape quickly. As the team prepared their equipment, Maria meticulously cleaned her custom-built rifle, a modified M24 sniper weapon system that she had personally adjusted for maximum accuracy. Every component had been fine-tuned to her specifications, from the trigger pull weight to the scope mounting system. She carried specialized ammunition designed for long-range precision shots, each round carefully inspected and tested for consistency. Her spotter, Petty Officer Second Class Tommy Mitchell, was a young but sharp-eyed operator who had proven himself reliable in previous missions. The insertion plan called for a nighttime helicopter drop approximately 3 kilometers from the target compound. The team would then move on foot through difficult terrain to establish overwatch positions before dawn. Maria and Mitchell would set up on a ridgeline 800 meters from the compound, providing both reconnaissance and precision fire support for the assault team. The distance was well within Maria's effective range, though the mountain winds and elevation changes would present challenging shooting conditions. Intelligence indicated that Red Falcon traveled with a security detail of at least 12 heavily armed fighters, all experienced in mountain warfare and familiar with the local terrain. The compound itself was a traditional Afghan structure with thick walls and limited entry points, making a direct assault extremely dangerous. The SEAL team's advantage lay in surprise, superior training, and Maria's ability to eliminate key threats before they could organize an effective defense. As darkness fell, the team conducted final equipment checks and reviewed their communication protocols. Each operator carried multiple backup radio systems to ensure constant contact during the mission. Medical supplies were distributed among team members, with the bulk carried by Rodriguez, whose battlefield medicine skills had saved lives on previous operations. Williams carefully packed his explosive charges, designed to breach compound walls if the situation required forced entry. The helicopter flight to the insertion point took 45 minutes through valleys and mountain passes that provided natural concealment from enemy observation posts. The pilot, a seasoned Army aviator, had flown countless special operations missions and navigated the treacherous terrain with practiced skill. As they approached the landing zone, Maria felt the familiar combination of anticipation and focused calm that preceded every combat mission. The team inserted without incident into a rocky clearing surrounded by sparse vegetation and steep slopes. Within minutes, they had formed up and began their movement toward the target compound. Maria carried her rifle and additional equipment weighing over 40 pounds, but years of physical conditioning allowed her to move silently across the difficult terrain. The team's movement was deliberate and methodical, with security halts every few hundred meters to listen for signs of enemy activity. 3 hours into the foot movement, they encountered their first challenge. A goat herder with a small flock had appeared on the trail ahead, moving in the same direction as the SEAL team. Morrison made the difficult decision to temporarily halt their advance and wait for the civilian to clear the area, knowing that any interaction could compromise the mission, but unwilling to risk harm to an innocent person. The delay cost them valuable time, but the team's commitment to protecting civilians remained absolute. As they neared their planned observation positions, Mitchell spotted movement near a secondary trail that intelligence reports had not mentioned. Through his night vision equipment, he identified at least 4 armed individuals moving toward the target compound. This unexpected development suggested that Red Falcon might have additional security measures in place or that other hostile forces were converging on the area. Morrison quickly adjusted the team's positions to account for this new threat while maintaining their primary mission focus. Maria and Mitchell reached their overwatch position just as the first hints of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon. The ridgeline provided an excellent view of the compound and surrounding approaches, though the angle required them to position themselves on a steep slope with limited cover. They carefully constructed a camouflage hide site using natural materials and specialized netting that would conceal their position from enemy observers while allowing clear fields of fire. Through her scope, Maria began detailed observation of the compound and surrounding area. The main building showed signs of recent activity, with fresh tire tracks and footprints visible in the courtyard. Several vehicles were parked nearby, including a pickup truck with a mounted heavy machine gun that could pose a significant threat to the assault team. She methodically ranged various points around the compound, calculating distances and noting wind conditions that would affect her shots. The morning air was still, which would help with shooting accuracy, but Maria knew that mountain winds could change rapidly as the sun heated the surrounding terrain. She and Mitchell established a detailed range card that marked precise distances to critical points around the compound, including potential enemy fighting positions and escape routes. This preparation would allow her to engage targets quickly without having to perform lengthy calculations during the heat of battle. At 7:30 in the morning, the first signs of significant activity appeared around the compound. Several armed men emerged from the main building and took positions around the perimeter. Through her scope, Maria could see that these individuals were well-equipped and moved with the discipline of experienced fighters. Their positioning suggested they were expecting trouble or at least taking routine security precautions. Morrison's voice crackled through the radio, confirming that the assault team was in position and ready to begin the operation. Intelligence sources had provided photographs of Red Falcon, and Maria studied these images again while scanning the compound for any sign of their target. The mission's success depended on confirming his presence before initiating the assault, as the intelligence community desperately needed to either capture or eliminate this high-value target. At 8:15, a convoy of 3 vehicles approached the compound from the main access road. Maria tracked their movement through her scope, noting the license plates and vehicle descriptions for later intelligence analysis. As the vehicles stopped in the compound courtyard, she counted 9 additional armed individuals who immediately spread out to reinforce the existing security positions. The situation was becoming more complex and dangerous with each passing minute. The lead vehicle's passenger door opened, and Maria's heart rate increased as she recognized the distinctive features of their target through her scope. Red Falcon emerged wearing traditional Afghan clothing, but carrying modern weapons and communication equipment. His presence confirmed that the intelligence was accurate and that the mission could proceed as planned. She immediately radioed this crucial information to Morrison, who began final preparations for the assault. However, as Maria continued her observation, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Additional armed figures were moving through the rocks and vegetation around the compound's perimeter, taking positions that would allow them to attack the SEAL team from multiple directions. The intelligence reports had significantly underestimated the enemy's strength, and what was supposed to be a precision raid was rapidly becoming a potential ambush scenario. She counted at least 25 enemy fighters in various positions around the compound, and surrounding terrain, more than twice the number that intelligence had predicted. Some carried rocket-propelled grenades and other heavy weapons that could devastate the SEAL team if the enemy gained the initiative. The tactical situation had shifted dramatically, and Maria realized that her role might expand far beyond the original mission parameters. Morrison's voice came through the radio again, requesting a final situation report before beginning the assault. Maria provided detailed information about the enemy positions she had identified, including the locations of heavy weapons and the most dangerous threats to the advancing team. Her report painted a picture of a much more challenging mission than anyone had anticipated, but the importance of eliminating Red Falcon meant that the operation would continue. As the SEAL team began their final approach to the compound, Maria settled into her shooting position and controlled her breathing. The next few minutes would determine whether the mission succeeded or whether she would be fighting to save her teammates' lives. Through her scope, she could see enemy fighters who had no idea that 8 highly trained American warriors were closing in on their position. The radio crackled with Morrison's final transmission before the assault began. In 30 seconds, the SEAL team would breach the compound's outer perimeter and begin their advance toward the main building. Maria's job was to provide overwatch and eliminate any threats that emerged during the assault, but she had already identified several enemy positions that posed immediate dangers to her teammates. At exactly 8:30, the mission began in earnest as the first SEAL breaching charge detonated against the compound's outer wall. The explosion echoed through the valley as chunks of mud brick and mortar scattered across the compound courtyard. Within seconds, the carefully planned assault transformed into a deadly firefight that would test every aspect of the SEAL team's training and Maria's exceptional skills as a precision marksman. The enemy's response was immediate and coordinated, confirming Maria's worst fears about the true scope of the opposition they faced. As the first SEAL operator moved through the breach, Maria saw a Taliban fighter emerge from behind a stone wall with an RPG launcher aimed directly at her teammates. Without hesitation, she acquired the target through her scope and fired her first shot of the mission. The 7.62 millimeters bullet traveled the 800-meter distance in just over a second, striking the fighter's center mass and eliminating the immediate threat before he could launch the devastating rocket. The sound of Maria's rifle was masked by the ongoing explosions and automatic weapons fire erupting throughout the compound. Her muzzle flash suppressor and carefully chosen position kept her hidden from enemy observers, allowing her to continue providing precise fire support without revealing the overwatch position. Mitchell immediately began spotting for follow-up targets while maintaining communication with the assault team below. Through her scope, Maria watched as Chief Torres led 3 operators toward the main building while Morrison and Williams approached from the opposite direction. The tactical plan was unfolding properly despite the increased enemy resistance, but she could see additional threats emerging from concealed positions that the assault team could not yet observe. A fighter with a heavy machine gun was setting up behind a low wall that would give him a clear field of fire across the main courtyard. Her second shot eliminated the machine gunner before he could bring his weapon to bear on the advancing SEALs. The range and wind conditions required precise calculations, but Maria's years of training and combat experience allowed her to make the necessary adjustments instinctively. The bullet struck its target with lethal accuracy, preventing what could have been a devastating barrage against her teammates. The Taliban fighters were now fully alert to the assault and began implementing their own defensive tactics. Several moved to positions that would allow them to flank the SEAL team's advance, while others attempted to establish interlocking fields of fire that could pin down the Americans in the open courtyard. Maria realized that her role had evolved from providing overwatch to actively preventing the enemy from gaining tactical advantage through superior positioning. Rodriguez, the team medic, was advancing with the main assault element when enemy fighters began firing from an elevated position near the compound's eastern wall. The SEALs took cover behind vehicles and concrete barriers, but their advance toward the main building had stalled under the heavy enemy fire. Maria could see that one of the enemy positions was particularly dangerous, with fighters using a concrete watchtower to direct accurate fire down into the courtyard. She shifted her aim to the watchtower and began engaging the enemy fighters one by one. Each shot required careful consideration of the target's position, the background behind them, and the potential for collateral damage to her own teammates who were maneuvering below. The precision required was extraordinary, but Maria had trained for exactly these scenarios throughout her military career. Her third shot eliminated a spotter who was directing enemy fire against Torres's element. The fourth took out a fighter who was preparing to throw a grenade into the courtyard where several SEALs had taken cover. Each engagement required split-second decision-making and flawless execution, as any missed shot could result in casualties among her teammates or reveal her position to enemy counter-snipers. Meanwhile, the assault team had reached the main building and was preparing to breach the primary entrance where Red Falcon was believed to be located. Williams attached his explosive charges to the reinforced door while the other operators provided security and prepared for the immediate aftermath of the breach. Intelligence suggested that the building's interior was a maze of rooms and corridors that could easily become a death trap if not cleared systematically. As Williams prepared to detonate his charges, Maria noticed movement in a building across the courtyard from the main target structure. Through her scope, she could see enemy fighters positioning themselves to attack the SEAL team from behind once they entered the main building. This flanking maneuver could trap her teammates inside the structure with no means of escape, turning the assault into a deadly ambush. She immediately radioed a warning to Morrison while simultaneously engaging the flanking force. Her fifth shot eliminated the lead enemy fighter, but several others continued moving toward their attack positions. The range and angles were challenging, requiring her to adjust for the compound's elevation changes and the wind patterns created by the surrounding buildings. The main breach occurred just as Maria was engaging her sixth target. The explosion from Williams's charges was followed immediately by the distinctive sound of close-quarters combat as the SEALs entered the building. Through her radio, she could hear the team calling out room clearances and target identifications as they systematically searched for Red Falcon and any other high-value targets. However, the enemy flanking force was still moving toward their attack positions despite Maria's efforts to stop them. She realized that her current position, while excellent for observing the main compound, did not provide optimal angles for engaging all the threats that were developing around the complex. Mitchell suggested they reposition to a secondary location that would give them better fields of fire, but moving would temporarily leave the assault team without overwatch support. The decision was made for them when enemy fighters began directing fire toward their current position. Someone had spotted their muzzle flashes or observed the impact of Maria's shots and was attempting to suppress the sniper team. Bullets began striking the rocks around their hide site, forcing them to keep their heads down and temporarily halt their fire support activities. Maria and Mitchell executed a rapid relocation under fire, moving approximately 50 meters to a secondary position that Maria had identified during their initial reconnaissance. The movement was dangerous and expose them briefly to enemy observation, but it was necessary to maintain their effectiveness and avoid being pinned down in a compromised position. From their new location, Maria had clearer shots at the enemy fighters who were attempting to flank the main building. Her seventh shot eliminated a Taliban commander who was coordinating the flanking maneuver through hand signals and radio communications. Without his leadership, the enemy movement became more disorganized and less coordinated, buying valuable time for the SEAL assault team. Inside the main building, the team was encountering heavy resistance as they moved from room to room. The structure was larger and more complex than intelligence reports had indicated, with multiple levels and numerous hiding places where enemy fighters could establish defensive positions. Chun, the communications specialist, was maintaining contact with Maria while providing updates on the team's progress through the building's interior. Red Falcon was proving elusive, and the team was beginning to suspect that he might have escaped through a tunnel system or hidden exit that had not been identified during the planning phase. The extended time inside the building was increasing their vulnerability to enemy reinforcements or coordinated counterattacks that could trap them inside the structure. Maria's eighth shot eliminated an enemy fighter who was preparing to detonate an improvised explosive device near the building's main entrance. The device would have collapsed part of the structure and potentially killed or wounded several members of the assault team. Her timely intervention prevented a catastrophic event that could have changed the entire outcome of the mission. As the search of the main building continued, enemy reinforcements began arriving from outside the immediate compound area. Maria could see vehicles approaching on the access roads, carrying additional fighters who would significantly outnumber the SEAL team if they were allowed to join the battle. The tactical situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, and Maria realized that her role was expanding beyond precision shooting to strategic target elimination. Her ninth shot disabled the lead vehicle in the approaching convoy by eliminating the driver. The vehicle veered off the road and crashed into a rocky outcrop, blocking the narrow access route and preventing the following vehicles from reaching the compound quickly. This tactical interdiction bought precious time for the assault team to complete their mission and begin their extraction. The second vehicle in the convoy stopped, and its occupants dismounted to continue their approach on foot. Maria engaged these reinforcements as they attempted to move through the open terrain toward the compound. Her 10th and 11th shots eliminated two fighters who were carrying heavy weapons that could have significantly impacted the battle's outcome. Inside the building, Torres's voice came over the radio with a critical update. They had found evidence that Red Falcon had been present, but appeared to have escaped through a concealed tunnel system that connected the main building to several other structures in the compound. The intelligence value of the mission was compromised, but the team was continuing to search for any materials or personnel that might provide useful information about Taliban operations in the region. Williams discovered a cache of weapons and communication equipment in one of the building's lower rooms, suggesting that the compound served as a major logistics hub for Taliban forces operating throughout the valley. Chim began photographing documents and equipment while Rodriguez provided security for the intelligence gathering operation. However, the approaching enemy reinforcements were becoming a more immediate concern than the intelligence collection activities. Maria could see that additional vehicles were approaching from multiple directions, and the Taliban fighters already in the compound were beginning to coordinate their efforts more effectively. The window for a successful extraction was rapidly closing. Her 12th shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was attempting to coordinate the various enemy elements through radio communications. Without effective coordination, the enemy forces remained scattered and less capable of mounting a unified assault against the SEAL positions. Maria's strategic targeting was preventing the enemy from organizing their superior numbers into an effective fighting force. Morrison made the decision to begin extraction procedures while continuing the search for Red Falcon and any actionable intelligence. The team would move in bounds toward their planned extraction point, while Maria provided continuous overwatch and fire support. The extraction would be considerably more dangerous than the initial assault due to the increased enemy presence and their growing familiarity with the SEAL team's positions and tactics. As the first element began moving toward the extraction point, Maria identified several enemy positions that posed immediate threats to the withdrawing team. The Taliban fighters had learned from the initial assault and were positioning themselves to attack the Americans during their most vulnerable phase of the operation. Her 13th and 14th shots eliminated 2 fighters who had taken positions along the most likely extraction route. The battle was evolving into a running firefight as the SEAL team moved through the compound and surrounding terrain toward their pickup zone. Maria and Mitchell would be among the last to leave, maintaining their overwatch position until the assault team was clear of the most dangerous areas. Their extraction would depend on precise timing and continued suppression of enemy forces that were now converging on the area from multiple directions. Through her scope, Maria could see that the enemy was beginning to understand her position and capabilities. Several fighters were attempting to locate and eliminate the sniper team that had been causing such devastating casualties among their forces. Counter-sniper tactics were being employed, and Maria realized that her next few shots might determine whether she and Mitchell could extract safely or would be forced to fight their way out of an increasingly desperate situation. The intensity of enemy fire was increasing with each passing minute as Taliban reinforcements continued arriving from throughout the valley. Maria could see through her scope that at least 40 enemy fighters were now positioned around the compound, with more vehicles approaching in the distance. The tactical situation had transformed from a precision raid into a desperate fighting withdrawal that would test every aspect of her training and resolve. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio with urgency as he reported that Williams had been wounded by shrapnel from an enemy grenade during the building clearance. The medic was treating the explosives expert's leg wound while the rest of the team continued their movement toward the extraction point. Williams could still walk, but would need assistance during the more difficult portions of the withdrawal route. Maria's 15th shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was maneuvering to attack Rodriguez while he treated Williams's wounds. The enemy had identified the American medic as a high-value target and was attempting to eliminate him to reduce the team's medical capabilities. Her precise shot prevented what could have been a devastating loss during the critical extraction phase. The SEAL team's movement was becoming increasingly difficult as enemy fighters established blocking positions along their planned withdrawal route. Morrison made the tactical decision to alter their extraction plan and move toward a secondary pickup zone that would require a longer and more dangerous movement, but might avoid some of the enemy concentrations. This change complicated Maria's overwatch responsibilities as she now had to cover multiple possible routes and anticipate enemy movements toward the new extraction point. Through her radio, Chen reported that helicopter extraction was still 30 minutes away due to mechanical issues with the primary aircraft and the need to launch the backup bird. This delay meant that the team would have to hold defensive positions and continue fighting a numerically superior enemy force for an extended period. Maria's ammunition supply was becoming a critical factor as she had already fired 15 rounds and was carefully managing her remaining shots. Mitchell spotted enemy snipers attempting to position themselves to counter Maria's overwatch capability. 2 fighters with rifles and scopes were moving toward elevated positions that would give them clear shots at Maria's hide site. She immediately shifted her focus to these immediate threats, understanding that enemy snipers could eliminate her and Mitchell, leaving the assault team without critical fire support during their most vulnerable extraction phase. Her 16th shot eliminated the first enemy sniper before he could reach his intended position. The second sniper, however, had observed his partner's fate and immediately took cover while attempting to locate Maria's position. This tactical chess match between opposing snipers would determine whether Maria could continue providing effective fire support or would be forced to relocate again under increasingly dangerous conditions. Torres reported over the radio that his element had reached the halfway point toward the new extraction zone but was encountering heavy resistance from enemy fighters who had anticipated their movement. The Taliban forces were demonstrating better tactical coordination than intelligence reports had suggested, indicating that their leadership included experienced military personnel who understood how to counter special operations tactics. Maria's 17th shot eliminated an enemy fighter who was directing mortar fire toward the SEAL team's position. The mortar rounds had been landing dangerously close to Torres's element, and eliminating the spotter disrupted the enemy's ability to deliver accurate indirect fire. However, she could see that additional enemy forces were setting up mortar positions in locations that would be difficult for her to engage from her current position. The second enemy sniper finally revealed his position when he fired at Maria's previous hide site, not realizing that she and Mitchell had relocated. Maria immediately acquired him through her scope and fired her 18th shot, eliminating the threat before he could adjust his fire toward their actual position. The brief sniper duel had consumed precious time and ammunition, but maintaining overwatch capability was essential for the team's survival. Williams, despite his leg wound, was maintaining pace with the withdrawing team and had taken over some of Torres's responsibilities to compensate for his injury. The explosives expert's determination and professionalism under fire exemplified the SEAL team's commitment to leaving no one behind regardless of personal cost. His continued effectiveness despite his wounds provided crucial capabilities that the team needed during their fighting withdrawal. As the team approached the new extraction point, Maria identified a significant problem. Enemy forces had somehow anticipated the location change and were already positioning fighters around the secondary landing zone. Either the Taliban had excellent tactical intelligence, or they had simply deployed forces to cover all possible extraction sites in the area. Regardless of the cause, the SEAL team was moving toward what could become another ambush scenario. Morrison's voice came over the radio requesting immediate fire support as his element encountered a heavily defended position blocking their final approach to the extraction zone. At least 8 enemy fighters with automatic weapons and RPGs had established a strong point that commanded the open ground the SEALs needed to cross. The position was well concealed and protected, making it extremely difficult to assault directly without suffering casualties. Maria studied the enemy's strong point through her scope, identifying individual targets and calculating the complex shots required to neutralize the position. The range was nearly at the maximum effective distance for her weapon system, and the targets were partially concealed behind rocks and earthworks. Each shot would require perfect execution, as any misses would alert the enemy to her capabilities and location. Her 19th shot eliminated the enemy fighter manning the RPG launcher, preventing him from engaging the extraction helicopter when arrived. The 20th shot took out the machine gunner, who was providing the heaviest volume of suppressive fire against the SEAL team's advance. These precision eliminations reduced the enemy's firepower significantly, but did not completely neutralize the strong point. Chin reported that the extraction helicopter was now 10 minutes out and requesting that the team mark their exact position with infrared strobes. However, activating the strobes would also reveal their location to enemy forces, creating a tactical dilemma between facilitating their own extraction and maintaining operational security. Morrison decided to wait until the aircraft was closer before activating the marking devices. The remaining enemy fighters at the strong point had taken cover after witnessing the elimination of their heavy weapons operators. Maria could see them attempting to relocate to positions that would still allow them to engage the SEAL team while providing better protection from her long-range fire. This tactical adaptation demonstrated that the enemy was learning and adjusting to her capabilities throughout the battle. Williams spotted additional enemy movement that suggested a final coordinated assault was being prepared against the SEAL team's position. Taliban forces were massing for what appeared to be an overwhelming attack designed to overrun the Americans before the extraction helicopter could arrive. The timing would be critical, as the enemy needed only to delay the extraction by a few minutes to potentially capture or eliminate the entire team. Maria's 21st shot eliminated an enemy commander who was coordinating the assault through hand signals and radio communications. Her ability to identify and prioritize leadership targets was preventing the enemy from executing coordinated attacks that could overwhelm the SEAL team's defensive positions. However, she was now down to her final few rounds and would need to make each shot count. The extraction helicopter's rotors could be heard in the distance as the aircraft approached the landing zone. The pilot would have only minutes on the ground before enemy fire became too intense to maintain his position. The SEAL team needed to break contact with the enemy forces and reach the helicopter quickly, but crossing the open ground to the landing zone would expose them to fire from multiple directions. Rodriguez reported that he could treat Williams's wound more effectively once they reached the helicopter, but the explosives expert was still fully capable of fighting and moving with the team. The medic's primary concern was preventing infection and managing pain during the extraction flight, which could last several hours depending on their destination and any required medical stops. Morrison made the decision to execute a coordinated assault against the remaining enemy strongpoint, while Maria provided precision fire support. The plan required perfect timing and execution, as the SEAL team would be exposed during their assault and depended on Maria's ability to eliminate specific threats at critical moments. The success of their extraction depended on this final tactical maneuver. Torres led the assault element toward the enemy position, while Maria engaged targets in a predetermined sequence designed to support their advance. Her 22nd shot eliminated a fighter who was preparing to engage Torres's element with an automatic weapon. The 23rd shot took out an enemy spotter who was directing fire against the advancing SEALs. The assault was successful, with the SEAL team overrunning the enemy position and clearing the final obstacle between them and the extraction zone. However, enemy forces throughout the area were now converging on the helicopter landing site, creating a rapidly closing window for successful extraction. The pilot would be landing directly into a contested area with enemy forces approaching from multiple directions. As the extraction helicopter touched down, Maria fired her 24th and final precision shot, eliminating an enemy fighter who was preparing to engage the aircraft with an RPG launcher. This shot was taken at maximum range under difficult conditions, but her years of training and combat experience allowed her to make the critical elimination that protected both the helicopter and her teammates. The SEAL team reached the helicopter and began loading the wounded Williams while maintaining security around the aircraft. Maria and Mitchell were the last aboard, having maintained their overwatch position until the final moment to ensure the team's safe extraction. As they ran toward the helicopter, enemy fire was impacting around the landing zone, but the pilot maintained his position despite the danger. The helicopter lifted off just as enemy forces reached positions where they could engage the aircraft effectively. The extraction had been completed with minimal casualties despite facing overwhelming odds and encountering significantly more resistance than intelligence reports had predicted. Maria's precision shooting had eliminated 24 enemy fighters during the mission, preventing numerous potential casualties among her teammates and enabling their successful extraction. During the flight back to base, Morrison conducted an initial after-action review with the team. The mission had failed to capture or eliminate Red Falcon, but the intelligence gathered from the compound would provide valuable information about Taliban operations in the region. More importantly, the entire team had survived an extremely dangerous situation through superior training, tactical flexibility, and Maria's exceptional marksmanship skills. Rodriguez completed treatment of Williams's wounds during the flight, confirming that the explosives expert would make a full recovery and return to duty within a few weeks. The medic's battlefield treatment had prevented any serious complications and managed the pain effectively throughout the extraction process. Williams's determination to continue fighting despite his injuries had been crucial to the mission's success. Chen's intelligence collection during the compound search had yielded significant information about Taliban command structures and communication networks operating throughout the valley. While the primary objective of capturing Red Falcon had not been achieved, the secondary intelligence benefits would support future operations against Taliban forces in the region. As the helicopter approached their base, Maria reflected on the mission and the challenges they had overcome. The enemy had demonstrated better coordination and tactical awareness than expected, suggesting that Taliban forces were receiving improved training and equipment from external sources. Future operations would need to account for these enhanced enemy capabilities. The mission had tested every aspect of Maria's training and capabilities as a precision marksman. Her ability to eliminate 24 enemy fighters at long range under combat conditions had been crucial to her team's survival and successful extraction. The experience reinforced her reputation as one of the most skilled snipers in the special operations community. Williams would receive a Purple Heart for his wounds and continue his career with the SEAL team after his recovery. His performance despite being wounded had demonstrated the level of dedication and professionalism that characterized the special operations community. The team's commitment to completing the mission and protecting each other had been exemplary throughout the engagement. Maria's actions during the mission would earn her a Bronze Star Medal with Valor Device, recognizing her exceptional performance under fire and her crucial role in the team's survival. Her 24 confirmed eliminations represented one of the most successful sniper engagements in recent special operations history, demonstrating the critical importance of precision marksmen in modern military operations. The intelligence gathered during the mission would lead to subsequent operations that successfully disrupted Taliban networks throughout the region. While Red Falcon had escaped capture, the broader impact of the mission contributed significantly to coalition efforts to degrade enemy capabilities and protect friendly forces operating in the area.